പറയുവാനെന്തുണ്ടു വേറെ വീണ്ടും പൊരുതുക എന്നതല്ലാതെ വിജയം പുലരുന്ന നാൾ വരയ്ക്കും വീറോടെ പൊരുതുക എന്നതല്ലാതെ പറയുവാനെന്തുണ്ടു.
Let me congratulate KSSP for completion of 60 years. It's a unique experiment. Though, as I have been saying, that history of science communication is almost as old, if not older. It's as old as modern science is, because modern science in 16th and 17th and 18th century, when it started emerging, people started going to the public. Whatever public at that time was important for them, and explaining things which were contributing to the knowledge of human beings. Much later, people realized that what is science? There is a community of scientists. These names emerged much later. And since then, a section of society has always made efforts to make science easy for the public and communicate regularly to them as science progressed. Much later, when democracies were established, then governments started taking responsibility of communicating science to the public. The entire education system and beyond four walls, institutionalization happened, which took responsibility of communicating science to the public. There have been many experiments, especially after Manhattan Project and especially after when Soviet Union launched Sputnik. Then the capitalist world suddenly woke up that it is not only sufficient to educate people, but within the society, scientific information should be conveyed and regularly conveyed, because science continuously progresses and the knowledge is added to the earlier pool. A lot of things are weeded out. And therefore, there were many experiments in Europe, in America, and in many other countries, including Soviet Union as it was. KSSP remains a unique experiment for two reasons. One is the ideological position that they took was consciously taken and built upon over a period of time. And the second was the enormity of it, the expanse of it, the involvement of a very large number of people. We should remember that when modern science started coming to various continents from Europe and Americas, the languages did not have capability to communicate this science, because science has its own language and its own culture. I always give a very simple example of velocity and speed. In science, velocity is not the same thing as a speed. These are two different terms and universally understood. Whereas in literature, they are used as synonyms. So therefore, these technical terms had to be invented at times and standardized and codified. In Indian languages, we face the same problem across the country. In Urdu language, in Hindi language, Bengali, Malayalam, Tamil, Telugu, Marathi, Gujarati, all languages face this problem. And here was a small group of 40 people who rose up to the occasion and realized the problem that standardization should be done in order to communicate science. And that was the beginning by 40 and odd people, young people getting together, scientists and also the writers coming together and thinking that this task is important and it has to be done if we have to propagate science to the public. So it was initially public good. But they also realized that empowering people is extremely important task. Empowering people with the scientific knowledge, which means that you have to standardize the thing, produce literature in the mother tongue, and then communicate it to the public. Gradually, it started getting transformed into a movement. And it became a movement because of ideological position. The ideological position was that we have to empower people in order to transform their own lives as well as the society. This wealth of knowledge cannot be usurped by a small section of society and used for their own benefits. This knowledge should be used for benefit of all, and it should be used to transform the material as well as intellectual life of people. Therefore, this realization, maybe it was not articulated in so many words, but this realization that propagating science, propagating scientific temper, or a spirit of inquiry is not only a scientific project. It is a project which is political, which is cultural, and at times economic. This realization could have led this leadership towards people's movement, towards making it people's movement. Scientific information keeps on changing, but scientific temper does not change in that sense. The scientific methods do not change. The anvil on which scientific knowledge is tested after generation does not change. So therefore, this ideological position that one has to be anti-colonialism, one has to be anti-imperialism, and one has to be anti-inequality in society, probably led the leadership to transform this small effort into a much bigger effort. First, this experiment started, took off, matured in Kerala. And it was a very large movement, which I realized when I came in contact with our comrades in Kerala Sasthra Sahithya Parishad. It was amazing that when Kerala Sasthra Sahithya Parishad decided that the Jatha format, which they had perfected in Kerala, could be implemented at national level. There was this leadership there which could think big, very big, because of their efforts and successes in Kerala itself. In 80s, they decided that that blueprint which was developed in Kerala, with slight modification here and there, could be implemented at national level. Then they needed other organizations. And here was Delhi Science Forum. There were areas where already fraternal organizations were working. We, all of us, under the leadership of Kerala Sasthra Sahithya Parishad, under that big umbrella, got together and started thinking. But as I said, I was always amazed because I didn't think in terms of cultural vehicles that Kerala Sasthra Sahithya Parishad had already experimented with. I didn't think about writing songs on scientific issues. It was amazing. One had seen plays, but not on science. And here was an organization which was regularly generating plays after plays and street plays had been perfected by them on scientific issues. But the most amazing thing which hit me initially was that when we decided that all over India we'll hold lectures on Manavodaya, then everybody, all the organizations, put together about 40 organizations from all over India, when it came to brass tacks, that how many lectures will you organize? Somebody said 5, somebody said 50, somebody said maybe 100. But when representatives or comrades from Kerala rose up, they said, we'll organize 100,000 lectures in a day. What? It's unbelievable. And at that time, I realized that it's the greatest, the largest experiment in the history of mankind was being undertaken by Kerala Sasthra Sahithya Parishad. And I'm so happy and I'm so thankful to our comrades from Kerala that I was also a part of it. I was made part of it. We traveled all over Kerala with the Jathas. We realized what they are doing in Kerala, and we were so excited that it can be done at all India level. I think over 60 years, KSSP has experimented with a large number of things, including how they handle the publication. But Jana Vigyan Jatha was another landmark, not only in the history of science all over the world, but in the history of India itself. That enormous experiment in the name of science communication or for science communication had never ever been taken. Touching 5 crore people in about 40 days directly, it's a massive project. See, such a massive experiment of science communication had never been undertaken anywhere in the world. There's no example of that. At least I don't know. If in any other country in 80s, such a project had been undertaken by anybody, anywhere. Touching 5 crore people in about 40 days' time directly is a massive project. A lot of people say that what is the result? What is the impact? So a simple answer to them is, imagine if this whole debate on scientific temper, science communication, and these activities, massive activities, had not been undertaken by anybody, where would India be? We would have been much earlier like Pakistan or Afghanistan. It is because of the effort of organizations like Kerala Shastra Sahithya Parishad and many more organizations this movement gave birth to, like Haryana Vigyan Manch, Himachal Vigyan Manch, and many other places. These were result of the Jan Vigyan Jatha. If these organizations had not been there, Indian democracy would have been much more fragile than it is today. Despite the fascistic attack by the most reactionary elements, despite the fascistic attack by anti-science people, democracy is still asserting itself. It's because KSSP has put in effort. But that is a political statement. Somebody can say that no impact has ever been judged. No. I remember very clearly before Jan Vigyan Jatha, there was a solar eclipse in northern part of India, and people went berserk. They went home. They were hiding within the 4 walls, and the streets were completely deserted in northern part of India because they believed that it's sinful to come out. But after Jan Vigyan Jatha, in 1995, when total solar eclipse happened, for the first time in the history of country of 4,000 years, people came out, they celebrated, and those shackles of myths and superstitions one could see were broken. Now again, yes, anybody can see that what media has done after that, and especially the private media channels have what they have done. They've gone back and they spread myths and superstitions every time there is eclipse, but it did make a difference. And I give full credit to efforts of KSSP just because they took this project along with fraternal organizations. India came out and the younger generation came out of that mindset. It's a big contribution. I think when we push the younger generation and society towards scientific temper and a spirit of inquiry, we advance revolution. We move one step towards revolution, towards transforming society. Kerala Sasthra Sahithya Parishad has done many wonders. It has impacted women's movement. It has impacted discussion on environment in the country. And very recently, in fact, today, I was full of enthusiasm when I read that in Kerala, a panchayat has banned use of sir and madam very consciously again, and has made a statement that it is colonial mindset because of which we have continued using these two words. And citizen is sovereign in democracy. Therefore, every government employee is their servant. So why should a government employee be called sir or madam? And one should remember, this resolution and this call has not come from the top. It has not come from the intellectuals sitting somewhere in a room. It has come from a panchayat. That is what makes a person like me sitting in northern part of India, that there is beacon of light and one can look towards it in Kerala. I'm sure Kerala Shastra Sahithya Parishad is going to contribute to changing of consciousness of ordinary citizens of this country in years to come. This effort will continue. And the journey of being creative and thinking big will continue with the revolutionary zeal for at least next 100 years. I'm sure new generations will come, take the responsibility, and will be more creative compared to what the previous generations have been. I'm sure you have educated the younger generations to take up the mantle and move forward. I once again congratulate all the comrades of KSSP.